Hello and welcome to the Future of Loyalty podcast with me, your host, Tom Peace. The Future of Loyalty are a series of informative and engaging podcasts with a laser focus on the emerging trends within the customer loyalty, engagement and CRM sector. I invite industry leaders and subject matter experts to discuss the future developments in customer strategy, and all our discussions are focused on where the industry is going next. Our discussions are fueled by a passion for new developments and innovations in the sector, and we aim for about 20 minutes, perfect for your coffee break, your lunchtime, or your journey home. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe at www.theloyaltypeople.global to get all our content direct to your inbox. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Future of Loyalty podcast. Today I'm joined by Craig Kent, self-confessed CRM nerd and CRM guru. So Craig, please can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure of the word nerd, but guru would be nice.
Yeah, I think nerd.
I'm not a nerd. No. No, look, I mean, it's great to be here. First of all, thanks so much for inviting me along. And yeah, I mean, why do I call myself a CRM guru? Well, I guess that sort of changed during lockdown when I was just any old CRM consultant, having at that point been doing it for about 7 years. And I needed to think about how can I differentiate what I offer to other CRM consultants. And I think, I spent a lot of time sort of, sat in a room for 6 months in the first lockdown, looking back at my career to date at that point, which had been a whole mix of CRM and marketing. And my career started above the line, before anyone knew what CRM was. I was a direct marketeer, working in travel mainly. And then I worked in betting for 5 years. In fact, that was my first contract. It was a 3-month contract. And then 5.5 years later, I left. And what I learned at Ladbrokes was pretty much everything that you could possibly ever want to know about CRM. I went into that contract, which became obviously a permanent job, thinking that I didn't want to have anything to do with data, systems, tech, any of the things that I now consider myself to be somewhat of an expert in, ironically, because when you're working in betting and gaming, it's all about numbers and data. There's no products. It's all, you walk into a betting shop, there's nothing there. But there's everything there, and it's all hidden behind the data. And I sort of became really obsessed almost after 5 years of just below the line marketing, and sort of waved goodbye without even realizing it to all the sort of the sexy side of marketing, the stuff that I used to do, radio, TV, print ads, and anything that had some level of excitement to it. And I think what happened was, marketing became more attributable. People wanted to know where the bang was going to be for their buck. Lots of buzzwords flying around. That was an early one for me. And I then started to focus much more on who is the customer and how you're actually going to prove that what it is that you're doing is actually having any effect on what the customer is engaging with or buying. And from that point, I went into what has now been a 10-year cycle of sort of running my own company consulting, during which I've worked with over 30 different brands. And, the biggest ones everyone's heard of, Shell, PayPal, Three, some huge brands. And then I started to work post-lockdown with some really, really tiny brands that suddenly some of them became quite big, some of them didn't. And around 2016, I guess that was, I wouldn't call it my breakthrough, but that's the one I'm most proud of, when I walked into a pub in Aylesbury and I met this amazing guy called Julian, who was going to change the world with this sort of product that he called Huel. Human fuel. And he had a team of about 6 amazing people just out of uni in a warehouse. And I went along to see them, and I thought, this is cool. And I spent nearly a year with him, formulating a strategy for something that little did I know at the time is just going to take over the world. So, Huel for me is my sort of, you walk into a room and people says, another CRM consultant. Well, what differentiates you from everyone else? And I talk about Huel. I could talk about others as well, but that's what grabs people's attention.
Let's save that thought. Let's loop back to Huel at the end, because I want to know a lot more about that, because that is obviously an amazing brand, and they've grown so quickly. I don't know how long they've been going, last 5 to 10 years. So let's loop back to that and hear about that story. But you're obviously a real CRM expert, and the loyalty people, we focus more on the loyalty program side, but obviously CRM is a massive part of what we also deliver. Um, so let's dive into what's kind of new. What's the future of the CRM space? Obviously, these webinars or these podcasts rather are all about the future trends and where we're going next in the sector. So where do you think CRM is going? Tell us a bit more about what's new and fascinating in your sector.
Well, I'll tell you what's not new to start with, but it is new, is that, if that makes sense, everyone has always talked, CMOs, founders, CEOs, everyone has always said, the classic, we put the customer at the heart of everything we do. And the truth of that is they don't. And I think the future is where these people get found out.
Right.
Because I always say, is your vision, your overarching objective, not CRM, your overarching business objective, does that align with what the actual customer wants? And when the customer comes into your shop, goes onto your website, goes into your app, whatever it is, is what they are doing there aligned with what the CEO is doing? And more importantly than that, is everyone in the business sort of KPI'd and targeted with a sort of linear line that replicates the vision, and the customer really, really gets to feel it. So whereas this is where the future is, it's also where we come from in the past, because every CEO, founder, everyone has talked about doing this, and it's words. It really is words, but going forward, it becomes more than words. It becomes action, and the way that you can turn those words into action is through the enabler. And when I say the enabler, what I mean by that is the tech. But the tech will only enable what you have about the customer, which of course is data, predominantly first-party data that the customer is willing and able to give to you. And then it's about how you use it. So this has always been the mantra of real CRM, and CRM done well leads to loyalty. Loyalty is not something. I don't wake up in the morning as a consumer and say, who am I going to be loyal to? I think, what am I going to buy? What am I going to do? I'm going to go into Starbucks, I'm going to buy a coffee. That's because I'm loyal to Starbucks, but I'm not that loyal because if I happen to pass a Costa, I'll go there. Maybe I'm loyal to both. And what is going to happen in the future, or has already started to happen in a big way, is that these enablers, these sort of tech solutions, for want of a better term, but let's call it CEP, ESP, CRM, anything with 3 letters in it that sounds scary to people who aren't in my field. Ultimately, and I think it's really important as well to just break down all of the jargon. Ultimately, it's what does the customer want, and how is the company going to give it to them, essentially. And you've got to use a platform to do that. And there are literally hundreds of these platforms, but the ones at the forefront of the market are the ones that realize you have to build multi-channel, which is, to be fair, it's not much different to omni-channel. There are intricacies, but you have to target the customer and build a relationship with that customer through the channels and touch points that customer subconsciously is on. So
so it's gone from sort of 10 years ago or so, we were talking about omni-channel, which was how do you make the relationship or the experience the same either through online or in store. And now actually we're talking about multi-channel, which is how do we treat the customer well at every single touch point? So even if they're just interacting with us on Instagram, or if they're just looking at our website to research rather than buy, or if they speak to customer service, or if they have a return, or if they have a delivery, how do we make every single touch point perfect?
And that's exactly
kind of what you're talking about, right?
Exactly. And what you'll hear less of now than you heard on every street corner or every corner of an office in a marketing department or a CRM team in the past was single customer view.
Yeah.
That was the buzzword. You still hear customer lifetime value because that is hugely important. But what most big companies in particular realize is there's absolutely no such thing as a single customer view, because unless you've got a loyalty card that a customer is absolutely going to produce at every turn, or something on their phone, an app that replicates and works across, on the website, in the store, on the app, whatever. And every single transaction, but not just transaction, but every single thought-provoking action is picked up and recorded by the tech that the company is using, then you're never, ever, ever going to get a single customer view. You'll get an idea, but, and I learned this in the betting world, 10, 12, 15 years ago, the loyalty scheme that I was running was only trackable in shop. And it was only trackable in shop when the customers actually felt like they wanted to produce their loyalty card. Now, obviously, things have moved on, and there's cards in apps, and there's loyalty apps themselves. But ultimately, the future of loyalty is just being able to know that you have that customer covered to some extent, at least, every time they open an email, open an SMS. Now, that's obviously less relevant than it was, but I think it's making a bit of a comeback, interestingly. Every push message that you send to drive someone into the app, every webhook, every in-app message, and every time that person goes into a shop, something on the till maybe picks up that we know this person has been here X amount of times before. This is where, this is where the nerdy stuff does come in, but it means something, building out those segmentations, and knowing the RFM side, the recency, frequency, monetary value, so that when I, Mr. Kent, walks into a shop, wouldn't it be wonderful, any shop, that someone says to me, I know you. You don't know me, you've never seen me before in your life, but I know, sir, that you want to buy this on a particular day of the week, time of the day, and it might complement the purchase that you bought yesterday online.
Yeah.
And that's the future. Now, whether that ever really becomes the reality of the future, I'm hoping that it sometimes does, or at some point does, but then it's very much tinged with the flip side, which is the creepiness of data. And hold on, I've never seen you before in my life. You're telling me Mr., Mrs., Miss Shop Assistant, everything about my purchase history. And so it needs to be, and there's a training element, there's a human element very much to this as well, but you need to be able to recognize the customer by who they are, not in terms of what they look like, but their persona and who they are in reality, without scaring them. And the other thing, of course, is in a compliant manner. And this is where companies tie themselves up in knots, because you've got the big corporates that are scared of GDPR because they know that you'll get fined, or someone's going to get fined, 10% of turnover or whatever whatever it is, which is ridiculous, but it does happen. So they're very, very conscious of that. And then you've got the other side, you've got the betting companies who want to get fined. They genuinely want to get fined. I was working with a company called Quiff a few years ago. I sort of went back in and did a 3-month or whatever it was project in betting and gaming because I missed it, and I thought this is a good opportunity. I was working with this great guy, CMO, and it scared the life out of me, because every decision he made that related to customer data, I was like, I'm not sure that the lady over there is going to let you do that. And he'd be like, well, sod the lady over there. I'm the CMO. You're going to do it. And I'd say, well, you do realize you'll probably get fined. And he goes, nah, I won't get fined. Anyway, they got fined. So
Oh dear.
you got to be very careful, but there has to be almost an appetite for risk, but very, very much within the law.
Yeah, of course.
And that's why, I spend most of my time, talking to DPOs, data people in organizations, to try and give them some semblance of confidence in me and what I do, in telling them that it's going to be okay. We're going to stay within the law.
Yeah.
There is, there's always a gray area as well,
So there is there's something there which it cuts across loyalty, CRM, customer engagement, customer experience. There's a lot of data now, and brands are actually collecting even more data. You mentioned their first party and zero party data. So This is supplementing all their delivery data, their purchase data, all this information they've got, even interactions with customer service and complaints and returns and everything. So how do how do brands and businesses make the most out of this data within a kind of a CRM journey? How do they actually action that? Because customers have control of the data now, whether customers actually realize that they've got control or not. But
Yeah,
but
that's an
but
interesting
there is
one.
this sea change since GDPR, right? And also with getting rid of third-party cookies, it's made a big difference to brands. And brands are now, to get around the fact that they can't get hold of third-party cookies, they're collecting more data. And I admit that I deal with a lot of brands that have started to collect data about what people want the brand for and how they use the brand and what their hobbies are and how they interact and
Yeah,
that sort of thing. And then they never use it.
yeah,
So
it's a great point.
how do brands get around this? How do they optimize this data? And crucially, big question, yes or no question for you. If they collect the data, must they use it?
Right, okay, well, they don't have to use it, but they have to be upfront about how they're collecting it and what they're using it for.
Yeah.
Now, I'd say two things about that, actually, what you were just saying there. The first thing is that, yes, the customer is in control to a point, but in reality, I'm going to ask you, Tom, when how much data have you given knowingly to customers in the last day?
To brands,
And
you mean? Oh yeah.
sorry, to
Oh,
brands.
yeah,
You've gone onto countless websites. Probably you've clicked that you're happy for cookies to be retained. You click various things. You may have done a survey. You may have given your email address. How in control is the consumer in real life? The answer, I think, is not very
Yeah.
in the real world. However, from a compliance perspective, yes, they're more in control than they were. That's the first thing. The other thing I would say is, and you're right, what you sort of alluded to, in that a lot of companies, they just collect masses of useless data that they're never going to do anything with. And the amount of times you get off a flight, or you buy something online and you get a survey and you're thinking, bloody hell, what are you asking me here? I mean, I'll
Yeah.
give you the answer. I won't give the answer. Who knows? But what are you actually going to do with any of this stuff? So the answer, really, I think, is progressive profiling. So anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically, you take the amount of information you need when you need it, knowing why you need it and what you might do with it. And there is a temptation, certainly among many startups that I work with. They just, we want everything. Why do you want everything? In case one day we might use it. Well, no, forget that.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
obviously collect the person's first name, their last name. There's a lot of stuff that you might think you want to know because you've got an agency that you're working with or who's pitching to you, who says, oh, yeah, we need to know this, that, and the other, which is absolute rubbish most of the time. But collect the information that you absolutely need for the purpose of taking them to their first engagement, sale, order, whatever it may be. And then, and this is the crucial important part, if they don't make that order, then you can go back to them, for example, with an abandoned browse, or more likely an abandoned basket. And upon checkout or post checkout, that's when they're at their prime to give you some, that's when they're going to give you most information that you want. But again, don't ask them their shoe size unless you're selling shoes.
Yeah, it's pretty
Do go
obvious, isn't
back
it?
to them. Yeah,
I actually think
yeah,
this is quite a no-no for me.
yeah.
I think people remember if you ask them, see that you've just bought a pair of trainers. What sport are you playing? Are you a footballer or a runner? Or if you ask them that and you never use it back, people remember. They're like, "Well, why did you even ask
What
me?"
they'll do is, yeah, I see you just bought a pair of trainers. Wonderful. What religion are you? Who did you vote for? What's your, your ethnic
Yeah,
background? What's your sexual orientation? Who cares? Who
yeah,
cares?
yeah.
Who's going to ever use any of this stuff? I tell you who's going to use it. No one ever. Don't ask it. But, however, having said that, You can't collect everything all at once, because the more you ask for, the less the response is going to be. So there is an argument that the quantity of data is going to be higher and maybe the quality is not, but then that's your CRM. That's how you build out your CRM strategy,
Yeah.
and how you then make you can't make customers loyal, but how you encourage loyalty amongst your customers. And then the more and more loyal, or the more frequent, or or money that they spend with you, assuming we're talking e-commerce, whatever, then at the right time, as you sort of get to know them, in inverted commas, you can go and ask them stuff that's relevant,
Yeah, of course.
stuff you're
Yeah.
going to use, because otherwise all you'll end up in, and I've seen it many times, is a mess. You'll have masses and masses of data on customers that mean absolutely nothing to you, and you're never going to use it. And for me, as a CRM marketeer, when I go into a company, a brand hires me, and they say, what do you, build us a CRM strategy? The very first thing I'm probably going to do, in terms of something that's actually going to mean something to then go on and create a sale, is build the segmentation. And you can bet your life that the first stage of any segmentation is not going to be anything more than, when did people purchase, how much did they spend, and how many times have they bought. The second iteration of that will drill down a stage further, and they may never even get to the second iteration. I would hope that they do. And then the only time that they're really going to get beyond that is when they turn, and I hate this, newsletters into data-driven personalized comms, multi-channel ideally, where at that point you might start to look at the range of products that they've bought, and then you can look at cross-sell and upsell and complement them, and whatever, and depending on what the product or the company is. That's when you look at getting extra revenue, whether it's ancillaries, upsell, whatever it may be. But that's when you start to use that data. But ultimately, as I say, and I think customers will trust you more if you take from them, or you request from them, information about themselves that is going to resonate with them, and it's relevant. It's all about relevance. Everything is about relevance.
I agree. I think that's it. And I think it's relevant to say to somebody, "Oh, I see you bought trainers and you told me that you're a runner. So actually, I'm going to talk to you about running now." That's relevant and appropriate. And I think also we've done some campaigns, especially in the kind of beauty and cosmetic sectors, where you ask, "Oh, I see you buying perfume. Who are you buying that for?" "I'm buying it for my girlfriend," blah, blah. And then you can talk to them about, "Oh, is it their birthday?" And then next year you
Yep.
send them an offer and say, "Oh, saw last year you had bought the perfume at this time of year. Do you want £5 off another bottle?" These things can be super relevant and super engaging. But you're absolutely right. If you come off piste and start talking to them about things that are really not relevant, just because you've already collected that data, then it doesn't really work.
Yeah, it's interesting. The running thing is really pertinent, because I've worked with sort of people in fashion and clothing and sportswear and everything else. And the good thing here is that you can start to build the brand, because all a brand is a perception. What is the, I know all about my brand is not the case. Your customers are the only people that know about your brand, because it's your reputation. So if you're going to sell them a pair of shoes, and then you're going to say to them, "I know you're a runner," this opens up a massive opportunity on social, for example, and with third parties as well, to bring them in, and then you can sort of partner up and turn it into lifestyle. So you bought these shoes, you're going to run a marathon, you're going to do it in London, you're going to go to Paris. We partner with an airline, we partner with Eurostar, we partner with hotels in Paris, whatever it may be. And then you start to build out this much bigger picture. And it may not be your core product, but what you're showing is that you understand the customer, they bought shoes because they've got feet, they run, which is great. And then if you keep it relevant, you don't start asking them, about where they live, or or what car they drive or anything like that. That's not relevant. Again, one of their agencies might tell you it's relevant to build out the social demographic picture of them, but all you're really worried about is, how do I retain this customer and refer? And runners are a community. It's like, go back to Huel. I know you said you want to go back to Huel. Huel is a community.
Come on, let's do it.
They're like-minded people.
Let's get into Huel now. So tell us the journey there. Where were they when you first got involved, and how did you kind of transform that, and where did they take it? What was the key ingredient?
Well, I think the first thing to say is it's run by a guy who just knew exactly what he wanted. Julian, great guy. He probably would forgive me for saying he was difficult, but you know what? Some of the best entrepreneurs, and I've met very, very few entrepreneurs, are difficult. And they're difficult for one reason, because they know what they're doing, they know what they want, they see it. No one else can see their vision, but they know it, and he got there. And every decision this guy made, I sat in a room with him often. Me, he had a head of marketing, which sadly she wasn't there very long. Lovely lady, but these things happen because she was seeing things from the sort of point of view that most marketing people see it from. Being CRM driven, I'm more interested in the data, the community, and this type of customer, which was so different to anything I'd ever seen before. And Julian just knew it. I mean, what he knew about his customers without having done any research. He said, "Oh, we're going to have T-shirts. Great. We're going to give away a T-shirt. We're going to give away a shaker, this, that, and the other." I thought, great. Well, this is a good upsell opportunity, or a good get them over the line. We can pre-package some added value stuff with the product, which at that point tasted vile. It really did, and I think he knew that, and I think he probably have admitted it, because there were two founders. There was a guy on the nutrition side, amazing guy, and he made the product, and Julian marketed it, and they just saw this gap in the market. I mean, I met him in a pub, and he said, "I'm building something for the end of the world, the apocalypse, for something that's probably never going to happen. Let's say a pandemic, for example, when people are stuck at home and they're not allowed to go to the shops, and the only thing that they've got in their basement is tons of fuel. It's never going to happen, but it happened. It happened. Yeah. He even foresaw. This guy. I can't speak highly enough of him. And we disagreed on everything. But he taught me that sometimes you just got to have a vision and go for it. And he said the logo is going to be black and white. It's going to be HUEL. That's it. Never going to change. Got an advertising agency in. They tried to change it. He fired them. Said no, it's not going to be like that. This is how it is, and this is still to this day how it is. And again, from my perspective, I didn't like the taste of the product. It did things to me that I don't think it's right for this audience. Until they amazingly got it into retail, and I love the products that they sell in retail, but again, they don't really agree with me. They taste great, and this isn't a Huel advert, but go and try it. It's amazing. But for me, it was about how do we take this community of this tiny little community of people that he's found and put on a forum, and how do we sort of monetize this and get it to grow? And it's amazing the amount of people out there that consume food because they know they need it to survive, but don't necessarily care about the taste or don't care about how they consume it, and they just want to put only goodness into their body. And the thing is, the pandemic has helped that, because it's got us thinking much more consciously. It's got us working remotely. So I smile. I love it every time I walk into a gym, see people in the T-shirt. Every time I come in here, my co-working office, see new Huel shakers come out, and I'm like, oh, I had something to do with that. Isn't that great? But look, I mean, I helped them on their way. I love the fact that I managed to do that. I'm sure that they would have gone on and achieved huge, wonderful things without me, but I was part of it. And I came in there. They were using MailChimp and Shopify. I got them onto Klaviyo, not Klaviyo, by the way, Klaviyo. There you go. That's another story for another day. How to choose a brand name that no one can pronounce, but it is Klaviyo. And that was an amazing, fantastic platform which I've used a lot. And they then moved on again. I think from there they went to Ametria and Amasis, and who knows where they are now. And it's all the same people. And it was basically, I did what I said earlier. I built them a segmentation. There wasn't so much recency and frequency, but there was a lot of value to be seen because people were buying a lot of this stuff. And of course, you buy a huge bag of fuel, and and this was the trick, because some people, it could last a year. Others, it might last a week. So, it was quite tricky to build a strategy based on something that was brand new, but it worked. I was with them for nearly a year. I'm not going to go on and on about it because this isn't the Huel show. But no, I mean, for me, it was a great experience, and I think I learned a lot
Well,
there that I managed to
yeah.
sort of take on thereafter as
I
well.
think I think actually what you're saying is that Huel got it right because they did what you said at the start of the call, which is they listened to the customer. They knew what their customer wanted.
Yeah,
They knew that it wasn't about the brand image, as in they just wanted a simple black and white image. It wasn't necessarily about the taste early doors, although I'm sure I've never tried the product myself, but I'm sure it tastes great now.
it tastes a lot
Uh,
better than it did.
yeah, right. But they just knew what their customer wanted and they talked to their customer about that.
And do you know
And
what?
that is the key.
Their customers were working for them because they hired these great guys, sort of first jobbers really, and they were just totally dedicated to the cause. And I've worked in a few startups where you get this, and it's just brilliant. You walk in and everyone just lives and breathes it. And these guys, they sat there eating this stuff. And there would be me on my laptop tapping away, and everyone would take a sample, and I'd be like, no, I'm all right, I've got to drive home after this. And they knew that I wasn't going to try it. I didn't need to like it to know how to market it.
Yeah.
But caveat that, yes, they got it right now. It tastes amazing. And yeah, it was just a great, I was in a room with 6 people on an industrial estate in Aylesbury, and it's not where you work, it's how you work and who you work with. And these guys were brilliant, and I had such a great time with them. And they were
Yeah.
so
Amazing.
different to me as well. But
Yeah.
I just love collaborating with all different types of people, and they were just totally bought into it. And I think all of them are still there. And this was 2016, eight
Yeah.
years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what a story. I mean, it's that Huel have had a phenomenal global success. So, congratulations to them and congratulations to you for helping them start that off. So yeah, a fascinating story. So yeah, great. Thank you, Craig. We've talked about some really interesting stuff there. We started off talking about the future of CRM and how it's not just about omni-channel, but it's now about multi-channel. And actually, you need to collect this data and use the data, but use it in a way that's relevant and personalized and not kind of off-piste. Don't collect data you're not going to use, but the data you do collect, make sure it's useful and return that back to the customer in terms of the communication, personalization, the offers. And that really is the key to success because it puts the customer at the heart of what you're doing across the business entirely. So thank you. And thank you also for the debrief on Huel, which I'm sure is a fantastic brand. It's not my kind of thing, if I'm honest, but I know lots of people use it and it's a very successful,
And I have to
great
say, I'm not getting
global
paid a
business.
penny. I'm not getting paid a penny by Huel to say it. It's probably
Yeah,
worth
well,
saying that
I
as well.
think I've got to be honest. I think they're doing fine without us promoting them on this website,
It all
but on
helps.
this webinar rather. But yeah, but it's
Yeah.
but look, it's been great to have you. Thanks so much for coming on. Really insightful conversation. So thanks very much.
No, I've really enjoyed it. And thank you. And yeah, thanks to everyone who's watching. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, thank you everyone that's tuned in and listened. We'll be back with another show in a week. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.